afternoon, everyone. We will get started right on time. I'm Meed Ward, Chair of Ontario's Big City Mayors and the Mayor of Burlington. I want to welcome you all for joining us today, and happy to provide this opportunity to talk about something other than snow. OBCM, of course, is an organization of mayors. We represent the 29 largest cities in Ontario, over 100,000, and together we represent over 70% of Ontarians. Happy to join you here today along with some of my fellow mayors, and I'll introduce them. You can see some of them on the screen, but I'll introduce them at the end, and you can certainly direct questions to any of us. We did move online because of the weather, but it does allow us to be joined by mayors from across the province, including Ken Boshkoff up in Thunder Bay, who has less snow, I'm told, than we do. So we are in the middle of a provincial election. Campaigns are ramping up, and Ontarians are ready to go to the polls on February 27. So we at OBCM are also ramping up our advocacy on the priorities that matter most to our residents that we serve. We are a nonpartisan organization, so we talk about policies, not parties. Municipalities are an integral part of the day-to-day lives of Ontario residents, and during this election, we are working hard to ensure that party leaders and local candidates understand what municipal governments need from our next provincial government. We're looking to the future of Ontario, and with our communities growing at an unprecedented rate, we are facing challenges that we never have had to deal with before, and we're asking our partners at the province to work with us to tackle these challenges head on so we can continue to build thriving, livable communities for our residents. Our advocacy campaign focuses on three key priorities. First, the homelessness, mental health, and addictions crisis that is unfolding on our streets across the province. Municipalities have been doing our part, but we can't solve this crisis alone, and our communities and our most vulnerable residents are suffering. In 2024, more than 80,000 people in Ontario experienced homelessness, according to a recent report by the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. Without significant intervention, homelessness could more than triple by 2035, up to 300,000 people without stable housing. We know that this crisis did not appear overnight, that decades of provincial underfunding for social housing, mental health, addictions treatment, and other desperately needed services all contributed to getting to this point. But the time to act is now. The next provincial government must act immediately to address the humanitarian crisis that is unfolding on our streets. In August, OBCM launched our solvethecrisis.ca campaign, outlining ways the province can address our most pressing issues, including asking the province to appoint a single minister or ministry responsible for homelessness, mental health, and addictions, with the appropriate authority to work with Cabinet to put in place programs and services that will address our local needs. We have received thousands of responses from the public supporting our campaign and sharing their stories, as well as the support of over 200 Ontario municipalities. We encourage everyone to visit solvethecrisis.ca for more information on what steps OBCM is asking the province to take to do their part to help us solve this crisis. Second, we're looking for housing and housing-enabling infrastructure. In the midst of a growing housing crisis across the province, every level of government must do their part and work together to get more homes built. We ask that provincial leaders commit to partnering with us along with others who are part of the home building process to identify the barriers that are still in place and come up with solutions to get shovels in the ground and Ontarians into homes sooner. Municipalities, of course, don't build housing, but we do build housing enabling infrastructure. So we are asking for a commitment to provide long-term sustainable funding to support housing enabling infrastructure, including water and wastewater treatment facilities, roads, bridges, transit, and electrification, and the kind of infrastructure needed to support complete communities. And that includes appropriate funding for new schools, hospitals, community centers, libraries, and parks that all we all need more of when we have more residents in our community. And finally, we need a new financial deal for municipalities. Municipalities are being forced to use the property tax base to cover costs for delivering provincial responsibilities, including healthcare and social services. Further, property taxes don't grow with population growth or the economy, yet many of the additional costs that municipalities have are a result of having to serve more residents with the same dollars. After years of downloading and increasing costs, municipalities are having to make tough choices between increasing property taxes, funding provincial responsibilities, and delivering the municipal services that our residents expect. Unlike other levels of government, municipalities only have one primary revenue source, and that's property taxes. And it is not sufficient to sustain safe, affordable, and thriving communities. Over the next 10 years, municipalities are planning for more than $250 billion of capital expenditures, with approximately $100 billion of that related to growth. In 2022, municipalities across Ontario spent $3.3 billion on health-related services, despite receiving only $1.8 billion in provincial grants. So we have joined with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities to ask for a new deal for cities. We can't plan for long-term investments waiting for a funding program to open up, hiring staff to apply for that program, hoping we get some or all of what we've asked for, and rinse and repeat. That system is bureaucracy heavy, inefficient, and a waste of time and precious dollars that could go to the issues we are trying so desperately to solve. We need the government to commit working with municipalities for an open conversation on how to forge a new deal, on who does what and how we pay for it. Over the next few weeks, we will continue to reach out to party leaders and local candidates through our members, as well as the public through social media and other online platforms, to ensure that they understand the needs of municipalities as the election comes to a close and voters head to the polls. We'll also highlight some key additional issues, including our support for a Team Canada approach to the threat of tariffs imposed by the United States. Last week at our caucus meeting, we passed a resolution for a Buy Canadian approach. We called for easing barriers on interprovincial trade and providing municipalities with the ability to prefer Canadian companies and supplies in municipal procurement. We've also formed a working group to share information and help increase our advocacy efforts in response to tariffs. And many of our members here today, including Matt Cisco and others, are part of other organizations that are taking up the tariff challenge. This includes the Ottawa Mayors Caucus, the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative, the Border Mayors Alliance, and FCM's Big City Mayors Caucus, all of which are working to advocate for municipalities on the impact that these tariffs will have on our communities. OBCM is also advocating for a number of other items. First, continued support from the province on creating a municipal code of conduct. Second, support for small businesses and the innovation sector in our communities. And finally, a new funding model for municipal police services. We want to make sure that municipal voices are heard loud and clear during this election, as these issues impact cities and towns across the province. We want to hear from party leaders and local candidates about how their policies will tackle these issues head on and how they will work with municipalities when they form the next provincial government. So when candidates come calling, we're asking and encouraging our residents to ask them what they will do to solve these priority issues. It is crucial that the province and municipalities work as partners as we all strive towards the same goal: safe, vibrant, and thriving communities across all Ontario. So just before I open the floor to questions and introduce some of the mayors we have here, I will share the election video that we will be launching today. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Burlington Mayor Meed Ward and Chair of Ontario's Big City Mayors Caucus. Together, we represent over 70% of Ontario residents. And here's what you've told us is important to you as we are in this provincial election. First, affordable housing and getting more shovels in the ground and infrastructure to support population growth. Second, funding to solve the humanitarian crisis on our streets, from mental health, addictions, and homelessness. And third, a new financial deal for cities in the Federation and with the province. So many costs and services have been downloaded to the property tax base that simply can't support it. So these issues have unfolded over many decades in successive parties, but when candidates and parties come calling and asking for your vote, ask them what they're going to do about these issues.
The other mayors who are here today, we have Cam Guthrie, the mayor of Guelph and the past chair of OBCM, David West, mayor of Richmond Hill and the newly elected OBCM treasurer, Matt Cisco, mayor of St. Catharines, and also a member of the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities Initiative, Darren Caniff, mayor of Chatham, Kent, Patrick Brown, mayor of Brampton, and Ken Boschkoff, mayor of Thunder Bay. We also have Dorothy McCabe, mayor of Waterloo, and I'm just looking to see if I've mentioned everyone who is here today. We'll open the floor and feel free to ask questions, and we'll ask the media to keep questions to OBCM matters. If you have questions for individual mayors about specific issues in their municipality, we invite you to follow up with them directly after this.
So
Go ahead.
first we have Alan Hale.
Okay. So I guess one question I have about like the New Deal is, do you think a New Deal would be as necessary if we got proper like municipal, like the property tax assessments? It's been so many years since we've had proper like property tax assessments. Is that part of the problem when it comes to to municipal finances, and what would you want to see happen on that front after the election?
Well, the property tax base as a whole is being asked to fund things that it was never intended to. And over many years and many different government administrations, costs like social services have been downloaded to the provincial, to the municipal sector. And we're the only province where those costs sit with cities. So certainly the property tax assessment is behind. The government made a decision to pause that in light of COVID and economic circumstances. At some point that will be adjusted. But the primary issue is that property taxes are not the way to fund the services that our community needs.
I mean, you guys are saying you're nonpartisan, but there's really only one party here that is not agreeing to give you a new deal, and it's the PCs. Should instead of trying to stick to nonpartisan, should you be like encouraging people to vote for parties other than the PCs since they seem so set against this idea of a new deal?
We will continue to advocate for a new deal with whoever forms government, and we maintain a nonpartisan position. We have members that from across the political spectrum. So we're really about policy, and we'll continue asking for this because it's important, and we'll add our voices to AMO, FCM, and many others to see it through.
So on the homelessness thing, we have a piece of legislation that was proposed by the PCs before the election. We had Paul Calandra sort of indicate that it might not be even necessary to pass this this law because I guess the municipalities are already taking steps that the province wants to see in terms of clearing encampments and getting people indoors. Do you agree with that? Do you think that the progress is already being significantly made on this issue?
Well, certainly we are very supportive of the announcements around the Heart Hubs, which is the recovery and housing initiatives in over 25, 27 communities across Ontario. The challenge, though, is much bigger than the funding that has been provided, and there's no one solution here. We need one ministry in charge. That's one of the things that we've asked for through our solvethecrisis.ca campaign. We would like an action table to determine the best suite of policy tools, resources, and initiatives So we'll continue to ask for that. But the magnitude of the funding requirement, and this is from a recent AMO report, is $11 billion over 10 years. There has been no announcement anywhere close to that amount. That's the need. And so we have a big gap in funding. So we'll continue to advocate that the best way to solve housing, homelessness, addictions, mental health is through providing supportive housing and services to residents who need it. And we currently have 80,000 homeless residents across Ontario. Ken, did you want to jump in there? Go ahead.
Yes, but to our topic in terms of tariffs and this, I think I'd like to explain very briefly the impact to us will be quite direct as basically a border city and a port. We have Ontario's largest sawmill. It's going to do harm. One of our largest pulp and paper plants in Ontario will be harmed and may be forced to close. So you're talking 600 high-paying jobs. We have the local metal fabrication companies building bridges to access all this new mining boom and all that kind of stuff. So the impacts alongside all of those things, I'll leave it at that, just to tell you that it's the same in almost any of our communities. These impacts are like mega. This is if it doesn't mean recession, it could mean even worse. So I think that for us to maybe try and soft pedal or whatever, I think we have to be quite strident in terms of where we're coming from, because Ontario's the growth engine, and for us, those are very quick identifiers of what could happen, besides being, as many of you are, an international port. So, we're quite worried here, and there's this huge mining boom going on that everybody's optimistic about the future, and this could really it doesn't augur well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, Ken. All right. Do we have any other questions from media? So back to you, Alan.
Mr. Guthrie, did you have something? You were waving at the camera.
Yeah, I just wanted to just get back to your question that you asked, Alan, about some of the legislation that was tabled before the election, and then now, many of us are kind of up in the air about what's going to happen with that. There was many parts within that legislation that I think many of us were looking for. It included an ask for more housing, supportive housing for people that are needing it, more dedicated operational funding as well, so not just the capital, but the operational funding for that. There was also a look to strengthen some of the maybe the police act and some police powers around open drug use that we are still looking for clarity on, and I think our police services across our cities are also looking for that clarity, and our citizens are asking for that as well. And then when it comes to some of the encampment type of cleanup, there has been some movement and some funds in regards to that outlay, but we would ask that whoever forms the government that really works with us, all the municipalities that are struggling with encampments, to find that human-centered approach to try to make sure that people are brought in and out of those encampments and into the type of housing and supports that they need, so that we don't have to have a treadmill of money coming to municipalities around cleanup of encampments. Wouldn't it be nice if we never had to have any money going to cleanup of encampments, and instead that the money would flow more towards that type of permanent supportive housing that people really need? So some of that legislation that was sort of tabled and now is kind of up in the air would certainly be something of a conversation that we would like to see either the PC government continue with if they are the successful party, or to have the conversations continue with any of the parties that are successful moving forward after the election, because these are still front of mind and front of porch issues for our entire communities.
Thanks, Cam. Turning back over to questions. Go ahead, Alan.
Is there still significant division on how to approach encampments? It seemed like PC leader Doug Ford sort of split your caucus a bit by coming forward and asking people to ask for the notwithstanding clause or a compulsory treatment. Is that a divide that still exists in the caucus? How do you feel as a group about those issues?
Hi, Alan. The caucus is actually unanimously united behind the solvethecrisis.ca campaign. So that is the position of the caucus. There is no debate or division about the need for additional resources and supports, a single ministry and point of contact. So all of the requests that the caucus has made through Solve the Crisis are unanimously supported. Individually, mayors, of course, are able to ask for additional tools over and above that, and we certainly encourage them to do that and use their voice. But the caucus is united around the Solve the Crisis campaign, and we always have been and will continue to be. All right. I don't know if there are further.
Good.
Yeah, no worries. Further questions from anyone? I'll just pause and see if so we have Matt joining us as well as David that I can see. I don't know if there's if you want to say a few words before we go. Go ahead, David.
Thank you. Alan, I just wanted to add one small detail to Marianne's answer that you had asked a question about assessment. And Marianne's answer, I think, really speaks to the meat and potatoes of our position on what we need from whatever future government we have in Ontario. But just to be clear, assessment and the work that Impact does and so on doesn't actually change the amount of money we collect. It only has to do with how you slice up the pie. And there are a lot of misconceptions out there about how municipalities get their funding. But the reassessment thing is a separate issue. But for the purposes of how we can have sustainable funding as communities, reassessment only determines how much individuals within the municipality pay as a proportion of the amount of money that needs to be collected, and that's only based on the budget, not like the higher the assessment value of an individual community does not mean that we collect more money in total. And I hear that from residents quite a bit. It's a confusing point, but it's an important point to remember when we're talking about how we're funding cities, because the assessment has nothing to do with it.
Thank you for sharing that, David. Really important piece of context there. Matt, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, no, happy to. Thank you, Marianne. And then a number of my colleagues have already made a lot of the points. Ken actually spoke very well about the tariff issue and how it affects his community. It's very similar in St. Catharines. We're on the border. We're at the mouth of the Welland Canal. So my work with the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative has had us involved. We'll be heading to Capitol Hill next month. And I kind of want to draw attention to the work that a number of the members of our caucus are doing. Drew Dilkins with the binational mayors, Mayor Morgan with FCM and the Big City Mayors Caucus. A lot of us are supporting the effort, Premier and the Premiers, to try and get the message across. And a couple of us have the benefit of being part of binational groups, and I'm going to give some credit to some of my American colleagues and specifically some of my Republican mayor colleagues as a part of the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative, because they've taken the same viewpoint as the Canadian mayors have, that ultimately these tariffs are going to harm both sides of the border. They're going to affect jobs on both sides of the border. Ken spoke to his community. In St. Catharines, we have 9,000 jobs almost that are directly related to U.S. exports. That is a significant portion, more than 10% of the jobs in my community that are directly tied to this issue. And we describe it as an existential crisis because it is, but our American colleagues are seeing the exact same thing, especially along the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence Basin. A lot of the marine industry jobs are being put at risk by this conversation. So I wanted to draw attention to the work that a number of our mayors are doing within OBCM as part of other groups as well, in addition to the work through this group to really try and bring that message home and also thank our American colleagues for the work they're doing.
Are you guys happy with how the Washington trip went? They didn't get a meeting with Trump or anything, but they got in the White House. Are you guys pleased with how things went?
I think from my perspective, I think it's good that the premiers are having those conversations, that my colleagues are having those conversations. The only way we're going to be able to deal effectively with this is for the lines of communication to remain open. And so I give a lot of credit to the premiers that were down there that have been able to get those meetings, and they have to continue.
Absolutely. All right. I see Dorothy on the line as well, our mayor from Waterloo. Did you want to say a few words before we close out? All right. Dorothy,
Thanks, Marianne, and hello, everyone. I'm actually at another event right now, so I'm listening. I'm concerned. I certainly fully support what's been said here, but I just need to keep my remarks really short today. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks, Dorothy. All right.
May I say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead, Cam.
Thanks. I just think the one thing that's a big pressing issue, and it's one of the main topics that Marianne brought up on behalf of the caucus, is the word certainty. We need certainty right now at the municipal level when it comes especially to infrastructure funding and housing infrastructure to unlock houses. In the world of uncertainty right now, tariffs, housing, interest rates, all of this is so uncertain. Municipalities need certainty. And so instead of us continually, on a treadmill of doing applications after applications, putting our hand up, trying to get attention around the type of things we need in our communities, we need a provincial government that's going to say, we are going to provide certainty for you. We're going to provide certainty in the funding and in the policies so that we can make sure that those just get out to municipalities and we can get to work. And that sets a better foundation for all of our communities with OBCM, to make sure that then we as well have certainty at the municipal level, which then goes to the housing industry, the business sector, the economy, and our economic development departments. That's something that I think is a very key issue that OBCM is also raising here around the issues that Marianne, as our chair, has risen. Bring us certainty, because that is something that's dearly needed right now.
Well said, Cam. A great note for us to end on. So I think we'll leave it there. I want to thank everyone for joining. I want to thank the media, first of all, for your interest. We really appreciate you tuning in and spreading the word about our priorities. If you have any additional questions, I can certainly make myself available in the coming days, coming hours. This afternoon, we had a snow day here, so my calendar freed up a wee bit. I also really want to thank the mayors who have taken time to join us today and for all of the work that you do on your own in your communities. We are stronger together, and it's great to see the caucus pulling together on these priorities. So have a great rest of your day, everyone. You do all have the media package and information. The video is online, and there's a link that was shared, I think, this morning with you, and we'll be launching that later today. So again, we'll make ourselves available if there are any additional follow-up questions, but have a great rest of your day, everyone, and happy Family Day weekend. Take care.